Mike, I'm going to do the cold start, final cold start test on your exchange carburetors, but I want to go over the fuel system first. Obviously, you got to have a clean, rust-free gas tank, and then you got to get the fuel up to the fuel selector valve, which is this assembly right here. And the problem with this unit is that there is a cork. I will get another example. Sorry about that. There is a cork. Tighten down the tripod. All right. Inside this unit, there is a cork down inside here. This is your slide valve. This is a cork down inside there. And this thing, in fact, you can see this thing's already shrunk around the perimeter. See how there's a gap right here? Gap down there, gap all the way around there. And the cork has shrunk below the level of these ports right here. So what that means is that this is going to be drawing air in through here, and you're going to lose prime on your fuel system. So if you have a consistent issue with trying to get the fuel to the pump and into the carburetors, this is usually the problem, and you want to take this apart, put in a new cork, or I've seen some people have developed a new rubber to go in here that's supposed to last longer, and I have just installed my first rubber version of this in a fuel filter, and we'll see if it's going to work or not. Next issue, fuel pump. All right, I've left this fuel pump dry so that you can hear it work, but if this thing is off the cam and you push the lever, nothing happens. It just flops around. So you may have to bump the starter to get this thing off the cam, and where it will do what I'm going to do right now, which is to pump and give you some resistance and squeak. Hope you can hear that. Anyway, but there's resistance. I'm actually pumping fuel now. As I said, I let these things sit for about a week, and the fuel system will drain back. And that's why this priming lever is here, instead of putting an electric fuel pump on the cars like the Germans should have, or put a decent fuel pump on there. Well, it's not a bad fuel pump, it just has its eccentricities. So we've now pumped fuel up here, and now this priming lever has very little resistance on it. And what's going on inside here, this is your fuel pump, and what's inside here, you got little flapper valves that go here, the little teeny stop sign shaped flapper valves that go here, and the spring that actuates them or makes them operate is probably weaker than the spring in a ballpoint pen. And so these things are really prone to sticking due to the crappy gas we have nowadays. And so if you ever had an issue where you can't get this thing to pump, remove your fuel inlet here and spray some B12 down inside there and try to unstick these little guys. And but that's the problem that you'll have when this thing will not operate. These little flapper valves are physically stuck. And now let's go around to okay, we'll go to the other side. Carburetors. Mounting the carburetors. You obviously, as I mentioned in the previous video, choke levers go to the inside, and that's so this wire comes down and grabs both of these levers. And so check your choke cable when there's nothing attached to it. Make sure it's lubed and moves freely. And then you will be attaching the cable to your two binding screws here, and of course what's happening is the cable comes up and down like this, but the levers are trying to go up in an arc, so you get some interference there. And the only adjustment you have here are these two screws and jam nuts, and you can screw these in and out to get the proper alignment of the lever to your cable. But that's why there's so much resistance when you pull your choke cable, is because now you're pulling against the arc, but also you're pulling against the throttle linkage right here. Notice this is moving And that's your cold start, and that's your choke at the same time. And so you're pulling on that one little knob on the dash, you're pulling a whole bunch of mechanical linkage. So that's why it's very tough to pull, but you have to make sure everything is working as well as it's going to work before you get before you're done installing them. Never mind. Next issue, carburetor installation themselves. Install the carburetors. I give you the instructions, and be sure to use your wave washers as shown in the instructions. And you get your carburetors on here loosely to where they will wiggle up and down. There's enough movement up and down these carburetors that you can, if you were just to bolt them in place and then try to come in here with your air collector, air log to go on there, it will not fit. So what you want to do is have these carburetors loose, install your air log, and then tighten up a couple of nuts and bolts on each of the carburetors, pull the air log off, do the rest of your tightening up, or maybe even do a few more underneath, and then recheck your air log that it's going to go in place, because if you don't line these things up with the air log will not fit, and it's going to really make you grumpy. Fuel fittings, very critical on the fuel fittings at the top of the carburetors. You want to make sure that excuse me, you stabilize the fuel fitting in the float bolt cover, and just only turn this one up here to unscrew it or to tighten it. You want to stabilize this fitting so it does not move under any circumstances. Now then, when you get this stabilized, when you unscrew this, for instance, if you want to then check for tightness on the fitting in the float bolt, you can. These fiber gaskets will continue to pack down a little bit, and this may loosen up a little bit, and you can check it whenever you need to. Adjustments. Let's see. Throttle linkage. Obviously, I'm going to send you instructions on throttle linkage, and this is where you do your final tightening, final adjusting, so that when you pop this in place, it does not adjust or alter your idle. I'll show you that later on. For other adjustments, let's see. Let's discuss the G55 idle jets. These are your idle jets, and this is the only thing that the carburetors idle on, are these jets right here. And they're very easy to access. There's no mystery about them. Just unscrew the idle jet, and you have a very tiny orifice on the end. The G55 stands for 0.55 millimeter diameter hole, which is pretty teeny, and this is the only thing that the carburetor's idle on. So if you lose your idle, it's because you got one or both of these jets clogged up. And real easy to access, and just blow them out, or use a little teeny fine toothbrush bristle to poke out any debris in there. But that's why fuel filtration is very, very critical. Your other adjustment, this is not an adjustment, that's just something to check if you lose your idle. Now then, the other adjustment besides your choke levers is your idle mixture screw. This is a tapered needle that you screw in and out to get the best idle. I'm going to tune it to my engine, but when you get to on your engine, you get to adjust this, and it's going to take very minute adjustments, something in the neighborhood of this amount here, and I will show you how this works with the actual running engine. What else am I forgetting here? Yes. Okay, we got your throttle is closed right here. Throttle is closed, and we're going to come over here and we're going to discuss the counterweights and their relationship with the first barrel. This counterweight is just has almost no movement on it whatsoever, and this one has just a little bit of movement on it. So what we're going to do is demonstrate that if you again, I'll go over this another time here, second time. What happens when you accelerate? I don't want to do this too much because I've got don't want to flood the engine. So if you accelerate the throttle all the way down, the second barrel is going to open up. I'll do it once here, that shouldn't be a problem. Okay, you accelerate, your second barrel opens up. And what closes the second barrel is this pin screw impinging on this pin underneath here. And you want it to where the screw just barely touches this counterweight, which is it barely touches the second barrel throttle shaft. And the reason for that is because if you have this pin screwed down too tight, this stops, the butterfly stops right here, and as you screw down the pin too much, the screw too much, it'll start to open up artificially your first barrel. And so you have to, that's why you check to make sure you've got just a little bit of clearance right here, and just enough to wiggle it. This one, as you can see, has a little bit more, and we can dial that out as need be. But that's going to be, that will be affected by the idle that you choose right here, the idle speed. I'll set it where I think it's supposed to be, but I just want you to know, understand the relationship. It's kind of hard to explain. Now then, we're going to use the synchrometer, and we're going to check our airflow. And this thing is the synchrometer BK1-1235, and this right out of the box, this is perfect for the Solex. So get you one of these for tuning purposes. So I need to get this lined up to where you can see everything. See here. See here, see here. Now the reason I've got a twisty on the choke levers is because this is the master choke lever with the major spring on it that keeps things from in place. This one here has no spring to speak of, and so this just flops around. So while you're testing, this thing can flop around and artificially close the choke on you, and you don't want to do that. And in fact, what I recommend you do is install the carburetors. Do not do final installation on the air log. Take a wire and take your return spring and then wire and attach it to your inner fender, and that way you can watch the carburetors and make final adjustments with the synchrometer on the car without the air log in your way. And then test drive, once you're happy with everything, then you can put the air log on as the very final thing. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with this. So we covered throttle linkage, idle mixture screw, G55. Let's see. Chokes, yeah, just make sure that, I know I was going to talk to you about was your choke mechanism. Make sure the choke mechanism is functioning, and that's really easy. Do a partial on activation of the choke, and just make sure this is flopping around. Same thing here. That's it, and you can do that with with everything attached in the car. Let's see. Also, at the very back here is a very critical item, which is this little teeny set screw, which was missing on yours that you sent in to me. This little guy right here, there's the clearance between this screw and the lever underneath there is 15 thousandths. And you're gonna have to measure that before you put this in the car, before you mount the carburetors, because that's you can't do it once it's in the car. I don't understand why they would do that to people, but so 15 thousandths is the clearance, and that's so that you have activation. You notice when I move the throttle lever, when I move the choke, the throttle is moving. So that's your cold start and your high idle at the same time. And without the high idle, it makes it difficult to start these cars when they're really cold. All right, you can still see here, and that's also over to the side here. I've got my analog RPM checker scale, so the I can show you how low we can get these in terms of idle, because you'd complained yours were idling at 2,500. Well, that's not going to be an issue anymore. Let's see if I can get this lined up or you see something. Okay. Oh, and what we're looking for is we want minimal airflow through the second barrel of each carburetor. And when I say minimal, The factory would be around 2 to 3 on this scale right here, and anything below 2 is gravy. And then airflow on here usually runs between 5 and 7. It just depends on the engine. But whatever it is you want it to be the same here from this carburetor to this carburetor, so they will be balanced. Let's see. Now then, we got fuel. We got the choke. And we got ignition. What we'll give it one pump. Choke. That looks like a good flood them after all. But for cold, it's a wonderful idle. And the only way to tune these things is to warm up the engine so the carburetors are warmed up. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the next few minutes, is warming up the engine. So I'll show you how your fast idle works here. Thermostat just opened up. We now have hot carburetors, hot engine, and we're going to show you how to tune and adjust these things. So first thing we do is disconnect our throttle linkage and make sure that we don't have a runaway engine, so we hold on to this guy right here. Next, we're going to check our airflow through our carburetor. So we see we got minimal airflow there, minimal airflow there. I'm going to adjust the pin a little bit to contact this guy. Signed up that right there, that clearance between the counterweight and the throttle. So double check our airflow here. Minimal there, minimal there. Now checking our first barrel here, we're running 6 and 6. Okay, so let's say we don't like this idle, so we're going to screw in the idle mixture idle screws the same amount. So I'm going to screw them in a half a turn just for fun. Quarter turn. So quarter turn there, quarter turn there. So we jacked up our idle. And we're now up to 6.5, 7. 6.5, 7. So that's how that works. Just both idle screws the same amount. I'm going to idle it back down. I'm doing these screws right here. Now then, we're going to do the idle mixture screws. Right here. And you'll see the difference that the idle makes when these are adjusted in and out. You can hear it degrading. Going back in. Picking up some idle. If you go in too far, it starts to degrade again. So now we back it out. We have our best idle. And we also don't want to make it to where these are too lean or and it backfires on us, so if you want to test what we'll be doing. Same thing here. Okay, idle degrading, back here. Our best idle speed. And what I would like to do is use the analog RPM purpose. That's a whole bunch. Now then, what we're doing is we are on the low scale. So right now we're running at 700 RPM. I'm going to, just for fun, I'm going to see how low we can get this thing to idle. Alright, that's 600. And 550. Alright, 450, 400. And we're still idling. So that's all due to the machine work. That's the quality of the machine work. I would say it's that's pretty damn impressive. So now we're going to get it back up to a decent idle. That's too low. We should be running about 750, 800. Maybe 650. Let's keep going. $750 to $800. That's good for starters. Now let me come back over here. Now we're going to check our airflow. Make sure we are balanced. Running 7 there, a little bit more than 7 there. Back off here. Keep a hold of this rod. That is 7 there. $7 there, and we are at 775 idle. I'm going to bring it down just a smidge, maybe 750. A little bit more. Alright, now we're at 750. Our reading 6.5, almost 7. It's reading 5 right there, so I need to balance these out a little bit more. 6 there. 5.5 there. Let's bounce this one up just a smidge. Actually running about 700 RPM right there. That'd be nothing wrong with that. Actually, 6 there. 6 there. Now, we're going to snap our throttle linkage back in place and make sure the idle doesn't change. And you see it changed because this is not adjusted properly. We'll see if I can, and that's why there's a turnbuckle here, so that you can adjust this in and out properly. Nope, that's not it. That's going to have to be it. So now we're going to accelerate and make sure we don't have too lean of adjustment on our idle mixture screws. If it's too lean, it's going to backfire. Back to our idle. 750, 775. Those are some really nice carburetors, and I think you'll be very pleased with them. So now we'll do a hot start. And the hard to start at the very beginning was I had flooded the carburetors, so it doesn't take much when these things are adjusted properly. I think I've got you some really nice carburetors. Thank you, sir, for your patience and for letting me do these for you.